Welcome to the Overcommitted podcast, your weekly dose of real engineering conversations. I'm your host this week, Erika, and I'm joined by...
Hey, I'm Bethany.
We met while working on a team at GitHub and quickly realized we are obsessed with getting better at what we do. So we decided to start this podcast to share what we've learned. We'll be talking about everything from leveling up your technical skills to navigating your professional development, all with the goal of creating a community where engineers can learn and connect. Today on Overcommitted, we are joined by Marco Herrera Rendon, who works as a senior engineer at Comcast, specializing in Rust development. Welcome, Marco.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. To kick us off, what is one thing you're currently building or obsessed with learning about right now?
So that's a good question. I'm currently, I could say that I'm obsessed with this. Obsessed with a design pattern called the actor model. It's something that has become extremely handy for me in the past few months, and I'm sure that we can talk more about that later. But yeah, it's something that I've been fascinated by, and it's extremely useful in Rust. And I guess another thing that I've been fascinated to do and learn more of is something called Rust macros. And just for some context, a macro, I'm not sure if it exists in every language, but it's something that allows you to auto-generate code in a way that makes your code read nicer. And that I've been trying to learn more about like the power of macros lately, and it's been super fun and
Very cool. Well, Marco, we actually go way back. Before either of us worked in software, we were fellow students in music school, where you were a composition major. So how has that background as an artist shaped the way that you approach the craft of software engineering today, if at all?
No, it has for sure, I think. So as a composition student, a lot of what I had to do, I had to write a lot of parts for players to play. So I would compose, and then I would write the parts for my ensemble to play. Going through and revising the parts that I was about to give to my players feels a lot like submitting a PR, where like, you want to make sure that everything is like as perfect as it can be, and like you want to make sure that you're giving a good impression to your colleagues or your peers. So I feel like that attention to detail is something that I've carried from my past life. Yeah, and I think something else that is interesting about being a musician and a coder is that, like, strangely, there's this same part of my brain that I tap into for both. I don't do both composing and coding now these days, but back when I did, I remember this sensation of like, hey, it's like the same part of my brain that I'm exercising as I'm doing these two things. Like, if you could picture, like, in a composition, you have like theme A and theme B, let's say, right? And then a big thing that you want to do in composition is you want to find a way to go from theme A to theme B in a way that sounds nice, right? But that's not necessarily always obvious. So like trying to find a way to organically go from theme A to theme B feels like it taps into the same part of my brain as like when I have a bug and I need to fix it. So like I have a bug and I need to do this other thing, like it's going from like theme A to theme B almost. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. I'm sure that there's something in there that I don't really understand, but it did feel like I was exercising the same part of my brain in a weird way.
That's really cool to hear about, and it's always fun to have these new like images or sort of mental models for how to approach software work and like really any pursuit, but very cool to hear about kind of how your brain works and how you kind of see those parallels. I'm just kind of imagining like music notes coming off of your screen when you're when you're fixing bugs.
Yeah, interestingly, it's like I can't really listen to music when I code because I feel like that same part of my brain is being used. So like it's very distracting actually. So I had to like stop anything I was playing. I don't know if you guys have the same issue or not, but for me it's like very distracting.
Yeah, I can do it when I'm doing more sort of like, I'll call it like janitorial work, like if I'm like deleting feature flags or like stuff that like doesn't really take that much concentration. But yeah, if I'm in like the deep focus mode, unless I'm really tired and need some kind of energy boost, I won't.
Oh, yeah.
Music, yeah.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, like when you're doing something over and over again, and you're like on the 10th time, you're like, okay, I need to play some of my jams to pump me up to do this 10 more times.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, cool. So you eventually made the jump from music to tech, and you started at Make Music, and you've described to me at least that kind of the training ground where you like learned how to be a software engineer. So what was that transition like for you from music to development?
Yeah, it was interesting. I feel like I was in the right place at the right time. I joined Make Music, like you said, in 2016, right after I graduated from with my music composition degree. It was the right time, the right place, and the right time, just because it's. I feel like unlikely that someone would get hired as a software engineer without pretty much any experience. It just happened to be that they had just moved to Boulder, and they unfortunately lost a lot of their devs. So I showed up, and they were like, "Yeah, we need more devs, and you seem to have some experience in music." And unfortunately, for composing, I used Finale, which is the software that they make. So it was a nice way for me to come in like with some expertise in some ways, right? Yeah, so yeah, as I said, I had pretty much like I think I had like two classes of software engineering when I started my software engineering. Well, I was actually an intern, but it was nice because at the beginning, I came in with some expertise in the notation part of the job, right? So it gave me a lot of confidence that people would go to me and like ask me questions about how the notation should work for this part of the app. And just for some context, Finale you can think of as the equivalent of like a for music. And so yeah, so that was nice. It was nice to be able to like from the get-go be able to bring some value to the team. But on the other hand, I was without a doubt the most inexperienced dev, right? So and everyone knew that, including me, which I think was very freeing. Like it made me unafraid to ask dumb questions, and I didn't feel like I was being dumb. Right? It was. I feel like that was a very important part of my career. It was a very formative experience for me to be able to ask all these questions and learn without feeling sort of like this shame that might come with that. And I feel like it's helped me since. Like, I think I still have somewhat of that mindset of not being afraid of asking questions. I think that's very important, and it can sometimes be difficult to do. Right? Yeah, no, that's how it went for me.
And clearly with learning on the job, that's such a huge skill to have. And I've heard that with your role at Comcast, you took on leading Rust development despite it being your first experience with that language. Was there anything about Rust that clicked for you? And is there anything you appreciate about that language compared to languages that you might have used at your last position?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I feel like I need to give you guys some context as to where I was in my career when I found Rust. So I was primarily using C++, and I don't know if you guys have used C++, but I feel like it can be a bit upsetting, I guess, sometimes. There were a lot of things that I was looking from C++ that it wasn't working quite well for me as I would have hoped. So when I found Rust, I found that it did all those things that I would have liked C++ to do for me. Right off the bat, incorporating third-party libraries C++ can be extremely difficult. Right? So seeing when in Rust I could just run a command like it's just cargo add something, and it just works every time, and it just builds. I was amazed. I was like, what? This is possible? I didn't know that. And of course, that's not unique to Rust. Like there's, I feel like these days, if a language doesn't have a package manager that works, I feel like that would be a pretty red flag, right? But at the time, coming from C++, it was huge for me. I think I also found Rust to be like extremely ergonomic. I think coming back to C++, there's all these keywords. For example, const. I don't know if you've do you guys use C++ in your jobs, or have you used C++ in that previous career job or something?
I've used it in school, but it would definitely be good to have a refresher. It's been a minute.
Yeah, so like you can add the const keyword in a function signature, in a lot of different places, and all these different places mean different things, and it's not always obvious what they mean, right? Like if you put it at the beginning of the function, and I'm even starting to forget now, but I think it means that it returns something that's const. If you put it at the end of the function, that means that the instance itself is const, so like you can't mutate any of the values in that method. But it's not obvious. Like you have to sort of ask or read about this, and I feel like Rust doesn't have this issue. They've found a way to make it extremely clear, like what keywords are being applied to what, and I feel like this is also being helped by the fact that Rust is, it's not necessarily a functional language per se, but it's almost like one. For example, things are immutable by default, so that helps a lot with. I think it helps a lot with the ergonomics of the language. I feel like it reads a lot better, essentially. But so like those were the first things that struck me. But then there's a few things that became clear after I had used Rust for some time, and these are like the confidence that you have that your program is going to work once it compiles is huge. So Rust does a few things. It has borrow checker. It basically, at compile time, makes sure that everything is being borrowed legally, and that you're not going to run into like any like sec faults, or if you're using multi-threading, that there's not going to be like two threads at the same time trying to access something. Obviously, this makes it a bit harder to code, but I feel like the trade-off of having incredible confidence in your program that it's not going to crash, I feel like it's a huge win, right? This also means that the compiler is doing a lot more work. So the compile times are, I think, significantly longer than like your typical language, which is something that people have complained about with Rust. But I feel like it's still worth it to know that in my program compiles that I'm most likely going to be okay, right? Whereas like if you use, and I should also say that there's no garbage collector in Rust, so it does those guarantees even without the use of a garbage collector, which is great. And then lastly, I think the type system and the macros and how both of them are used sort of make things feel like magic to me. And I can give you guys an example. And again, coming from C++, if you wanted to serialize some structure into JSON, for example, I feel like you would either need to write a ton of code or try to, I don't know, like I know that it would not be an easy task. Whereas in Rust, the only thing you have to do is you need to add a macro that your struct implements a trait, and you're done, right? Like that's all that you need to do for your struct to be able to be deserialized and serialized into JSON or XML and such, right? And at first you might think, so like that's something that you actually can see early on in your use of Rust, but like it might be easy to think that like the compiler knows something about this code and it's able to like work in the inside, or like in the inner parts of the compiler to be able to understand how to deserialize and serialize your code. But in fact, all this is implemented with a third-party library, so all these things are exposed to everyone. Like there's no inner knowledge or inner compile features that the author of the library is using. Like everything that he does to be able to implement this is something that everyone can use, right? So while it looks like magic, it's not, and I feel like that's very powerful, and that's achieved with a really effective type system. I think that one was a bit hard to explain, but I feel like you have to sort of like see it to appreciate it.
No, that definitely makes sense. I mean, as you're talking, it totally makes sense that Rust would be almost a spiritual successor to C++. Especially in how it can interact at a low level and have like those low level APIs, as I understand it. So that's really cool. Also, as you were talking, it made me think, like reflect on my own experiences and such. And it's so interesting that it almost seems like the first language you learn is setting the path for what languages you'll resonate with. Because if you learn to program through like C++, for instance, it totally makes sense that Rust would make more sense to you compared to like I started with Java. So Go, I think, really makes sense to me. It's got a strong compiler, but it's like easier than Java in a way. But when I go to Rust, I'm like, what is happening? So I think that's so interesting and is a really cool part of your experience and how you've learned and grown in the industry, especially with regards to Rust.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Actually, I feel like if I hadn't gone through the pains of C++, I wouldn't have appreciated those Rust things that I do appreciate now. Whereas, like, if you had come from, I guess a language that is considered, I guess, easier, I feel like you'd be like, why would you do Rust? Like, it's just harder, and I can do the same things with this other language, right? So, for sure, no, that's a good point. That's interesting.
Yeah. No, I've seen it in work as well. Folks who come from maybe a JavaScript background have more trouble with Go, but I mean, like, whenever I go to a JavaScript anything, I'm like, what is happening? So it's definitely a trade-off there with what you're learning.
Yeah.
But I love that, like, that using that harder language or that older language that might not have all the niceties that Rust has does make you appreciate it and also understand maybe what's happening more under the hood when you import or are using a package manager or something like that. So that's really a great point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, to bring this all the way back to music, it's almost like composing for like a different ensemble, and like you kind of have to know like how a clarinet works, how a trumpet works, like how strings work. And like if you're used to composing for strings, like you kind of get to know like, oh, these are all the different things that I can do, like, you know, this is going to sound really like this in a high register versus a low register. And then you like switch over to composing like a brass quartet or something, and you're like you said, like, well, what is happening? Like, I don't even, like, I guess like this one goes high, this one goes low, like what's the range, what's the timbre of all this, how's it gonna sound? So yeah, I mean, there's definitely like more than what's on the page is required for like really understanding the functioning of a language and like how a whole program fits together. Like,
Yeah.
you can learn the syntax, and you can learn, you know, like, I almost feel like in my brain, like I oversimplify it, but I think as we're talking, it's becoming clear, like there's a lot more there. Like the syntax and sort of the basics are only the tip of the iceberg, and like there's so much more there to really like getting comfortable working in the language.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like what you said about the instruments. It made me think about like what would be the C++ equivalent of an instrument. Like,
That's a good question. If you can think of the answer, please let me know.
it's also interesting to think about like how like early decisions that you make do sort of like forge your path, right? Like also in like I played cello, and for me it's very easy to compose for cello or for strings, but like it's very difficult to compose for like tuba, right? And that's probably set for my life. Like I'm probably not ever going to be a better composer for tuba than I am going to be for a string, right? So that's an interesting like thought, and like how maybe some of those initial things that you learned were not even in your control. Like I learned C++ just because I was hired by this job, right? Not because I chose to. And so that's an interesting thought. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating because even though the concepts are the same underneath, like same with music, the concepts in music theory are probably very similar between instruments. Your mental models are just like set in stone almost with, oh, this maps to this. Definitely do not have as much experience with music or was ever professionally trained, but playing a piano is way easier for me than like going to a guitar. And I have to almost see the fretboard as a piano to operate at all effectively while playing guitar. So that's super, super interesting and a great tie-in with learning.
Yeah.
Speaking of beginning and learning how to program, if you could go back and learn either Rust or even C++ over again, is there anything you do differently or change in that process?
Yeah. Gosh, if I had to learn C++ again. I would maybe decide not to. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think I can answer that question better for Rust than I could for C++. I feel like I've been out of touch with C++ for a while now that I missed many years. It's been, I think I stopped using C++ in like 2018, 2019. But for sure for Rust, I would focus. So when I first started learning how to write Rust, I used it mostly for things that I wanted to, like, for my own personal projects. And that, I feel like, unfortunately, it excluded a big part of Rust that is very important for me now, and that is async Rust. And async Rust is almost like its whole other beast than Rust. And given how important it is for me right now, and I feel like most devs at some point are going to have to write async code, I think that I would maybe prioritize learning how to write async Rust first, just because, as I said, it's like a whole other beast. There have been some complaints about how it's like not very intuitive to use async Rust. Like some things that are traditionally very easy to do in async in other languages can be quite difficult in Rust. But I feel like starting out with async would have given me some advantages to, like, I don't know, get hired for jobs, right? Like if you're gonna be, Rust is mostly used, I think, for backend. I think there are some front end opportunities for Rust, but I think if you're gonna find a job in Rust, it's mostly gonna be for, or it's most likely going to be a backend job. And if you're gonna have a backend job, you're guaranteed that you're gonna have to use async Rust. And yeah, so I think that's something that I would have done in retrospect. When I first started to learn how to write Rust, it was mostly just about, like, for example, I wrote a library that would detect a pitch based on an audio file that you gave it, and I thought that was super fun. It was something that was relevant to me because I might be able to use that in my daily life as a cellist. Like, I need to tune my cello, so like I would need to determine whether or not my cello is flat or sharp, and I could use my that I wrote in Rust to do that, right? So I thought that was very exciting, but it didn't exercise any async Rust, right? So while it was fun, I feel like it would have been more important for me to use Rust in the context of trying to find a job in Rust. But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard, not just for being hard. I think async Rust is extremely performant. So I think it's sort of like a trade-off, right? Like, it can be hard, but it can also be with the benefit that you get a lot of good performance from async Rust.
Cool. So you've clearly mastered this art of building the plane while you fly it, as we would say, leveling up, skilling up as you're on the job, as you're doing something. So we've kind of talked about, like, the beginnings, and then when you're there and you're working through something, do you tend to, like, set goals for yourself of like achieving a certain mastery of something, or do you, like, tend towards more figuring it out as you go?
I tend to be more of I sort of like dive in and figure things out as I go. That tends to work pretty well for me. Yeah, I feel like for me the best way to learn something is to just get exposure on the thing that I want to learn. I feel pretty strongly that, like, you need to do, right? Like, you can't just read about something, like, you actually need to do something, right? I feel like it's a lot easier to run into some of the like difficulties or some of the issues that you can encounter if you do as opposed to just if you read about something, right? But I feel like that's a bit of a Wild West, right? Like, if you just jump into something, you're not going to be proficient with it on your first encounter with it. So I feel like another aspect of trying to learn something is, I feel like you need to be okay with not everything making sense at once. Like, if you're on your first exposure to something, like, you understand maybe 10% of it, like, that's okay, right? Like, you have enough information to start creating a mental model, and then, like, you get more exposure, and then now you know, like, or you're able to understand 15% of that thing, and you can adjust that mental model. And I feel like that has worked well for me, and I feel like it is a good strategy, I think, to learn something. I think trying to like actively find ways to expose yourself to this new thing that you want to learn, as well as being comfortable with not understanding everything at once, is a strategy that has helped me a lot.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm gonna take this for myself too, because I understand, like, I understand that desire to want to know everything all at once and to like have those light bulb moments right at the beginning. But you're totally right, where that's not always how it works, and it's not always a straight path. Like, sometimes you have to go over here and then you have to figure out when to course correct. Like, sometimes you have to like throw it all out and start over again. Sometimes you have to like veer a little bit left or veer a little bit right. And yeah, kind of giving yourself those feedback loops of like, did that work? Yes, no. What do I need to fix? Like, did that work? Yes, no. And yeah, it's a way to not give up, not get frustrated. And yeah, I think that's a very wise kind of model of approaching this this job that we all do, where, you know, any with any level of expertise in an area, like, we're all constantly figuring things out, because it's like the technology is constantly changing. So it's never like you have everything all set. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, again, music analogy, it's like you're writing for a tuba one day and then somebody completely changes what the tuba looks like. It's tuba V2. So you have to figure out how to how to write for it all over again. So yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Or like the person that you were gonna write a piece for, I don't know, leaves the country, and then you have to write for something else, and you're like, I have to learn all this. But yeah, I feel like it. You can't just read about how to compose for this instrument. Like, you have to like do it and like ask, hey, is this gonna work? And then they tell you this actually is not gonna work because the tuba can't play chords, for example, right? So like, okay. Whereas like if like how long would it take you to find out that tuba can't play chords if you just read about the tuba, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's a good way to think about it. And that's what worked for me. I feel like that there's no right way of learning. I'm sure that some people can learn very effectively by reading. It's just something that for me hasn't worked as well. And I feel like for some reason, just jumping in and doing something has been for me the best way to learn something.
I'm inspired, and going to take some of these little tidbits and
Amazing.
yeah, cool.
What do you think
Well,
you're gonna learn, Erica?
what's that?
What do you think you're gonna learn next?
Oh man. Currently, I am. So this week I learned about calendar protocols. I don't know if either of you have this issue or I'm a complete mess, but I have the hardest time managing. I have maybe 3 different Google calendars, 4, I guess, if you count my work calendar. And then I also use my like Apple Calendar for some things. And like, I don't know what it is, but like already this year I feel like I've had so much trouble like figuring out when I'm free, when I need to prepare for stuff, like all this kind of stuff. And it's always been kind of a mystery to me, like, why there's not more sort of like calendar aggregation software.
That'd be incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, even so, like, my little like pet project this week has been like, what would it be like to build a little like agent that you can talk to at the start of the week or like midweek and be like, hey, what are all the things that are happening this week? Like, what do I need to prepare for? Like, who do I need to communicate to? Do I have any conflicts? Like, all this kind of stuff that like I have to do myself and I'm terrible at. So yeah, I figure I'm also interested in like benchmarking agents. So work has also been pretty busy this week. So I got to the point of like reading about calendar protocols and doing like a little toy thing of like calling some APIs and stuff.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, let me know if you build something. I feel like I have the same issue. I mean, I only have 2 calendars, so not to the same extent as you, but yeah, I would love to like be able to easily understand like, hey, I need to prepare for this week, or there's that conflict here. Like, you should reach out to this person and see if you can reschedule. those things that we have to like manually do. I feel like should be something that helps us with that. I think like that's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a struggle. Even like, I mean, Claude integrates into your calendar, but for whatever reason, it only reads your default calendar. And if you have any extra calendars, it just ignores that. And I share a calendar with my husband, and it's like, well, you're totally ignoring half my schedule, so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll keep you posted. Yeah. I feel like it's solving a real problem for me, which I think is a, a large motivator for getting things done.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I think if you find if you have a project that you know is going to help you a lot, like you have so much motivation to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And so far, nothing. I mean, unless like there's like I think it's definitely possible to integrate multiple Google, Apple, and Outlook calendars. There's like self-hosted calendars that I'm gonna kind of ignore for now, and they're not like technically impossible, but I'm kind of gonna like figure that out later. But
Yeah.
yeah, technically nothing's seeming like a red flag right now. So yeah, well, cool. I'm feeling a little nostalgic since we met back in college, and talking about music days always gets me thinking about my past life as a musician.
Yeah.
So at the end, we're kind of wrapping up with we always call a fun segment. Hopefully this is fun. Hopefully it's not painful thinking back on your former self. But we'll do it round robin style. We'll ask the question, and then Bethany and I will both answer it, and then you get to go last.
Okay. I'm ready.
And the question is, what would your college or former, I guess, former self think about the work that you are doing right now? And yeah, so I think I would be like, I would be very like pleased with myself. I think I would be slightly surprised, but like surprised in like, oh, you actually like made it happen, like, which makes it sound like I have and had a lot of self-doubt, which is very true. So yeah, I really enjoy the work that I do, and I feel like it does tap into a lot of pieces of me that have been around, sort of since like deep in my personality and my experience, but were not always utilized in my work as a musician. Yeah, I think I would give myself a pat on the back.
That's great.
Yeah. What about you, Bethany?
I would have been jazzed. I learned how to code in college and didn't major in computer science. And so by the time I realized, I want to be a software engineer, I was later on in my college journey, and I was very sure I wanted to do software engineering. But man, I struggled with the interviews, especially not having all the classes and the data structures and algorithms. It was very tough to interview and feel good about it. And also I just always felt like I didn't quite belong, but it was something that I was really, really desperately seeking. And so I think I would be so excited and fulfilled to know that I did it. So yeah.
I think for me, kind of like you, Erika, I'd be a bit surprised. I don't know when it was when you decided that you wanted to be a software engineer, but like I definitely didn't think about that I wanted to be a software engineer in college. So I feel like if my college self could truly see where I am right now, he'd be like, wait, what? We were pursuing this like film scoring dream. Like what? What happened? But I feel like my old self would need a lot of context to understand that that what I'm doing right now is cool, and that he would really enjoy to do it in the future. Yeah, it's funny for me. Software jobs didn't really become a thing until I was about to graduate. I was actually applying for master's degrees in film composing, so it was still not like a big part of my path for me. It was more like I need a job. Like, who would hire me right now? And I was like, well, I know how to use the software. I should reach out to this to make music and see if they take me, and they did, and that's kind of like what forged this path for me. So it was a bit interesting. But yeah, I definitely love what I do right now, and I feel like if if my past self know or could understand some of the context around my life right now, I feel like he would also be pretty happy.
Very cool. Well, music is never lost, and yeah, even though you're not doing as much composing today, I hope that's still maybe a part of your future.
Someday, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe you can write songs for Felix.
Yeah, oh, that's a great idea. Like, I would love to be able to sing him to rock him to sleep with a song I wrote or something. Right? Like that'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
That'd be cool. Awesome. Well, Marco, thank you so much for joining us. Where is the best place for people to find you on the internet if they want to reach out?
So I actually don't have a huge presence online, but I feel like the most interesting part of myself on the internet is maybe my GitHub page, and it's my name, it's my so M and then my last name, which unfortunately is very very long. So I'll spell it out. It's HERRERARENDON. If that makes sense.
And we can link it too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That probably makes more sense. But yeah, I have a couple of pinned repos there, and that might be interesting. But yeah, other than GitHub, I don't really have a huge online presence.
Nice. Well, now you have this, and
That's true.
we are so glad we got to talk with you today. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to Overcommitted. If you like what you hear, please do follow, subscribe, or do whatever it is you like to do on the podcast app of your choice. Check us out on Blue Sky and share with your friends. Until next week, goodbye.